So this presentation will give a brief overview of the bin trim program and then detail some case studies of business success story experienced by us, the bin trim assessors. We'll also touch on some of the challenges faced by bin trim assessors, what we have learned from this experience, and then finish with some questions. The first round of the New South Wales EPA bin trim program commenced in July last year and is due to be completed by the end of this month. It will be followed by 2 further rounds, with applications for the next round now open and closing on June 15. The program aims to assist businesses to reduce waste to landfill and increase the amount of waste that's being recycled. Bin trim is a Waste Less, Recycle More initiative funded by the Waste Levy and is aimed at small to medium enterprises, those with less than 200 employees, and across a range of sectors. Government agencies are not eligible to be assessed through the bin trim program. During round 1, over 200 assessors have been working in 116 local government areas across New South Wales. Round 1 grants were awarded to private independent consultancies such as Impact Environmental, waste industry service providers, councils, regional waste organisations and not-for-profit organisations. During round 1, over 7,000 businesses have been assessed, with 521 million litres of waste that is currently being landfilled being identified as potentially recyclable. The program has also helped businesses to understand waste services available to them and understand the processes involved in waste and recycling, in landfill and recycling, and has directly initiated behaviour change in regards to waste management. So, the role of the assessor. Bin trim assessors either recruit businesses or, in the case of waste service providers, they work from their existing customer base. In the case of Impact Environmental, we approached around 500 businesses and we recruited 203 to the program. Recruitment is followed by an initial waste assessment, which includes a visual assessment of the bin contents at the premises. This identifies the potential for waste diverted from landfill. It also gives the opportunity for the assessor to build rapport with the business owner or manager, and this is essential to achieving successful outcomes. Well, that's what we found. The assessor follows up this assessment with an action plan which details suggestions for both behaviour and structural changes to waste management, which is provided to the business contact. It is at this point that the assessor has the ability to encourage and support behaviour change. In our experience, some businesses needed little assistance in implementing their action plans, whilst the majority needed quite a bit of hand-holding and prompting if anything's going to change. I think the objective perspective of an assessor can also be beneficial in overcoming potential barriers to change. An example of this would be one of the holiday apartments that I assessed. They had an issue with their bin housing, so they had their bin area and really all they needed was a few more yellow recycling bins so that they could bring them in when the other ones were full and they were awaiting their collection day. And I sort of looked around and went, well, what's that area over there? And they said, and I sort of pointed to this area that was just a bit of grassy patch beyond the bin housing area. And they sort of went, oh, well, no, nothing, we're not using that for anything. And so just the fact that I was sort of there questioning maybe a different solution to what they're currently doing, I think that can help just to have a different person looking at their situation. The assessor can also use this first assessment as an opportunity to educate staff and provide useful information regarding local waste service. Many businesses are not aware of the services available to them. The second assessment occurs once sufficient time has elapsed for changes to have been implemented from the action plan. This gives the assessor and the business contact the opportunity to reflect on actions taken or not taken, and the reasons why, and identify any barriers to further change. I think we've just gone to sleep, maybe. Hopefully not the audience as well. Okay, so now for a few of our success stories. Our first case study is Beachside Apartments in Port Macquarie. When assessed, this business, consisting of 30 self-contained holiday apartments, had no recycling taking place, with 100% of waste ending up in landfill. When bins were assessed, over 80% of the waste in the general waste bins was potentially recyclable locally. And the reason why that's so high is because obviously in Port Macquarie Hastings Council we have a full organics service as well as commingled. As a result of the bin trim program, the owner purchased internal recycling receptacles for each apartment. Oh no, I don't have a picture of them there, and obtained a commingled recycling collection service as well as an organic service to be used mainly for garden waste rather than food waste. He's sort of taking a two-step approach. So the first was to address the commingled waste that was in the landfill bin. The owner reports now that around 90% of guests use the new recycling receptacles to some extent. So some of them might have only been putting one material in there, but at least they're actually utilising them. These changes have enabled the business to recycle 40% of its waste, and the owner reports he has saved over $1,000 on waste management in the first 6 months since implementation. And that might not sound like a lot, but for him he was really impressed. Like this guy, I just loved this guy. He just got on board with bin trim and he had spreadsheets. I went back for the second assessment. He had spreadsheets on how much he was saving and tracking how many bins he was putting out and all this sort of stuff. So it's really encouraging as an assessor when you get someone like that who only needs that little bit of information and then they run with it. His motivation was mainly financial savings. However, prior to bin trim, he just hadn't realised that taking that action would save him money. He just didn't know, essentially. The second case study is Greenmeadows Medical Centre, also in Port Macquarie. The Greenmeadows Medical Centre case study has been included as an example of the bin trim program working in a strata situation with bins shared by 4 businesses on site. These strata, from my experiences, these strata bin trim assessments can be quite time consuming and a bit tricky because you've got to get everyone on board, or at least try to get everyone on board, because if one of those businesses is contaminating the bin, then it kind of ruins it for everyone. When assessed, this strata had a commingled recycling service as well as a general waste. However, the general waste contained approximately 60% of mixed recyclables, and it was a bit like what Anne was talking about, these black bags, and what's in the black bag, and a lot of the time it was paper and cardboard. The recycling bin was underutilised, even though it was the same size as the general waste bin, and it was being filled with uncrushed cardboard boxes. Pet hate of mine, that one. Food from the cafe and shared lunchroom was also ending up in the landfill bin. Through bin trim, the business implemented internal commingled recycling in all work areas. They also implemented an organics waste service and are now recycling food waste not only from the cafe, but from the lunchroom that is used by about 30 employees. The strata has gone from having a 660-litre general waste bin collected twice weekly to now only once weekly, and the reverse for the recycling bin. So they've kind of swapped, I guess, their volumes for those bins. The cafe itself has managed to reduce its waste to landfill by 85%. I think I've got a picture. Oh, she's not really clear in that photo, but that cafe owner up there, she was a champion as well. She got right on board with it. Next case study is Norco Foods. It's a dairy company employing 65 staff. It's located in the Bellingen Shire Council. And this case study is a clear example of how diversion of waste from a single waste stream can result in substantial cost savings for a business. An estimated 46 tonne of plastic wrap is generated from the factory annually. As a result of the bin trim action plan, the potential to recycle plastic wrap currently landfilled was identified. At the time of the bin trim assessment, management were unaware that plastic wrap has the potential to be recycled. Whilst the initial action plan suggested purchasing a baler, management was so enthusiastic that they sourced a plastics recycling service for 2 of their factories, which provides the balers free of charge. The additional recycling from plastic wrap recycling will save the business over $15,000 per year. This example highlights not only the capacity for bin trim to identify the potential for recycling, it also demonstrates the role of bin trimming towards education and initiating behaviour change among SMEs. Impact Environmental assessed SME a variety of sectors including accommodation, childcare, some non-government schools, health and aged care, retail and some manufacturing. If you'd like to chat to myself or Jessie, my colleague, she's floating around, about any of those sectors in particular, just come and grab us later on. So, it wasn't all plain sailing, of course. I'm just going to run through a few challenges that we had. There were some significant teething problems with the EPA, just ask Cathy all about it, and the data entry tool in particular in round 1, and round 2 grantees will benefit from the experiential learnings and also the significant improvements that have been made to the system in round 1. It would be no surprise to those here that a major challenge can be staff resistance to change. There's a lack of knowledge or care about the negative effects of landfill, and we've all met those kind of people in our communities who just aren't interested. The issue of being out of sight, out of mind, there's 2 things I'd like to say about this. We found in particular it's a problem when you've got enterprises that have more than one employee dealing with the waste. So there's less accountability for who's put what in the bin and for contamination or incorrect handling of waste. The second thing on that point about out of sight, out of mind, a few of our bin trim businesses had really enthusiastic managers, but then when those managers took the decision to the off-site owner, the off-site owner isn't there and not dealing with the waste and not seeing the potential impacts of that waste, and not just logistical issues but social issues as well. And so they're removed from that, and then therefore they resist the change. They just think, oh no, it's too hard, and then they say no to the manager. So you might be almost there, but you sort of stumble at that final hurdle when that person who's actually absent makes a decision against making changes. Also, in 2 businesses that we assessed, the businesses were so lucrative that even demonstrated gains of thousands of dollars by implementing recycling was not enough to enthuse absent owners. So we could still say, oh, but this is going to save you thousands of dollars, and the manager would be saying, oh, the owner doesn't care. They got plenty of money. They don't care. So I don't know how you overcome that one necessarily. No time to devote to implementing the action plan. As Anne mentioned before, core business activities will inevitably take precedence over non-essential tasks, such as looking at your action plan. Some people don't even open it, and then you ring them up and they don't know where your email is and all this sort of thing. Lethargy. Quite a few of our potentially large diversion businesses did not get around to implementing their action plans in time for the reporting requirements of round 1 of the program. Doesn't mean they're not going to do something, but they're just a bit slow on getting involved or implementing. There's been problems, a few cases for us where partners don't agree. So business partners, the same business, you'll speak to one guy, he's really enthusiastic, he wants to make changes, you're thinking, great, this is awesome, we're going to divert a lot of waste from landfill, and then suddenly you meet the other partner and everything changes. So there was also a case of a motel that I went in, we assessed, the manager was right on board, we put into Murphy bins in all of the rooms, like little recycling bins in all of the rooms, rang him up, everything was going great, went back for the second assessment, they weren't in the room. And I said, oh, what happened, you know? And he said, oh, the owner's wife said it's the owner, he'd been okay with it, the owner's wife came in afterwards, said, I don't like the look of those in our rooms, can you take them out? so she won. But I suppose they're actually still on the site, because I said, well, do you want me to take them and give them to another business? They're actually still on site, so I'm kind of hoping eventually they'll go back in. And he did implement some other changes, so it's not that all was lost. There's also a belief out there, and those in local government would understand this belief, that council should pay for anything to do with improving their waste services. That's just a bit of a perception out there. Other challenges, costs associated with any changes. Obviously, businesses are always thinking about the bottom line. Bin housing constraints, as I mentioned earlier. And some businesses, there is a real struggle with those bin housing areas, and even I struggle to come up with ideas, creative ideas about how we're going to solve those. Also, sometimes we've had some difficulties or inaction with some waste contractors, which can just make the whole process a bit more drawn out. And with bin trim, you kind of want to act after you've seen the business and they're enthused. You kind of want action to happen so that you keep the momentum and you keep them engaged in the program. And occasionally uncooperative strata members, which I mentioned earlier. So, what has been learnt? Some key points about what we've learnt at Impact through bin trim experience. Saving money is a big motivator for SMEs, but not always. Some are more motivated by other factors. It's important to build strong relationships with the businesses and speak their language. So there probably isn't much point in banging on about how good recycling is for the environment to a business owner that's mainly concerned about finances. They just don't want to know about it, especially if they're busy. However, speaking to an early childhood centre manager about how important it is to teach children about sustainability and linking it in with their curriculum, they can be quite motivated by that. So the motivations between SMEs and between them wanting to change or not wanting to change can vary greatly. Businesses like hearing success about similar businesses, and I found this a lot when working in the accommodation sector. Most businesses need ongoing support or hand-holding once the assessment has taken place. The local cost of landfill is a major driver for success, as is the comparative cost of a recycling bin to a landfill bin. The bin trim is a competitive program by design, with assessors representing different grantees competing to registered businesses. That said, Impact Environmental managed to achieve a rate of 2 businesses registered for every 5 contacted. If the business owner experiences prompt assistance and provision of information from their local council, we've found this to be conducive to the business implementing the changes. It also helps if the council's bins, the recycling bin, is cheaper than the landfill bin, by significantly cheaper, because obviously there's a financial incentive there. Lastly, I'll finish with the fact that in our experience the bin trim program has been a success. Whilst waste diverted from landfill can be measured, what is more difficult to measure is the awareness raising and education that comes from the program, which will undoubtedly result in behaviour change long beyond the timeframe and initial scope of the program. So it actually has been a really satisfying project to work on. That's it, thank you.